What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. The name Robert Blake. If you're young, the name doesn't ring any bells. If you're one of my few older subscribers, 65, 70 years of age and older, then you may recall Robert Blake as a child actor in Hollywood. If you're 55 years of age and older, then you may remember Robert Blake for his 1970s hit TV show Baretta, in which he won an Emmy back in 1975. If you're about my age, then you remember Robert Blake for a very infamous moment in the early 2000s. One of the most infamous moments in Hollywood history. Robert Blake died today at the age of 89. He was suffering from heart disease, and he died at his home, surrounded by his family. Robert Blake was infamously charged with the deletion of his second wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley, after she was found deceased outside of Vitello's restaurant in Los Angeles back in 2001. Bakley had been shot in the head while sitting in Blake's vehicle. Blake told investigators he had gone back inside the restaurant to retrieve a pistol when Bakley was shot and killed. It was determined later on that the pistol used to delete Bakley, almost screwed up, was not the murder weapon. Blake's trial lasted about 3 months, but he was eventually found not guilty of deleting her and not guilty of 2 counts of solicitation and deletion. The second solicitation of deletion charge was also immediately dropped. Blake's career in Hollywood spanned more than 50 years, starring in movies like In Cold Blood, Lost Highway, which is the last movie that Richard Pryor ever appeared in back in 1997, and Treasure of the Sierra Madre. As I said previously, he also played Tony Baretta in Baretta, a role that won him an Emmy, as I said earlier, in 1975. Blake was 89. Now let me say this. Anybody that takes umbrage to my title can go to hell, because I know that whenever O.J. Simpson shuffles off this mortal coil, they're going to bring up the most infamous moment of his life from the get-go. They're not going to give him some grace period that they afforded others. I remember when President Nixon died in April of '94, they went about, well, the majority of television stations and newspapers went like 3 or 4 days without mentioning Watergate. When O.J. Simpson's, before he even is cold, they're going to be bringing up what happened in 1994 first. In his football career, maybe second. So, when I look at the whole Robert Blake thing, I notice a lot of people try to make excuses for him and blame the wife and say that, the wife had it comment, it was other people. And I just say to this, about that, look, I don't know what happened. I really don't. But I do find it interesting that he claims that he went into the restaurant to retrieve a gun, and at that moment, because supposedly she was getting death threats, she gets shot in the head. I mean, maybe. Then the gun was found in a dumpster. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you do it right, why not just run? Why just toss the gun in a dumpster and then run? Sounds more like somebody went into the restaurant, acting like they're retrieving a gun, got the gun that they were going to use as the murder weapon, shot her in the head, and I just used them M word, oh well, shot her in the head, then threw the gun in the dumpster, wiped the prints off, then threw it in the dumpster, I should say, and, you know, it is what it is. I'm just throwing this possibility out there. I know that he had a terrible temper. He was very volatile. He was known for his volatility. This is a guy that, if not mistaken, as a young person, he had been dilly-dallied with, if you know what I mean, physically, in an unnatural way. He had a lot of pent-up rage, a lot of demons. If you do any research on Robert Blake, he was a very, very volatile person. It does not surprise me that that happened. I'm not saying that he did it, but it would not surprise me if he did do it. And it's shocking to me how there's so many hypocrites out there who will take up for Robert Blake and say that he did not do this, and that, oh, the LAPD set him up, or it was her fault. She had so many enemies. But if I bring up Mr. Simpson, OJ, and I tell them that I don't think he did it, but I do think he know what happened, then I am completely off base. It's funny, you can see an LAPD conspiracy with Mr. Blake, but not with Mr. Simpson. And then they say, well, look, he was found innocent by a jury of his peers. Leave it at that. But you can't and could not accept that verdict from O.J. Simpson's jury of peers. You couldn't accept it. Certain people couldn't accept it to the point where they had to set the man up in 2008 to finally get him behind bars, to the point where they claim that there's no such thing as double jeopardy. But when he was sentenced to 33 years, which ultimately he didn't serve, why were the Brown and Goldman family there? What did it have to do with the robbery? Right? So this is why I don't cut this dude any slack, because I'm going to be honest with you, I think he did do it. I don't remember all the details like I used to, but when you look at the details of the case, I think Robert Blake did do it. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.